Last night wasn't beautiful. It wasn't clean. It definitely wasn't efficient. But it was honest basketball. The Los Angeles Lakers didn't walk into a track meet. They walked into a fight. And they walked out with a 110-101 win over the New Orleans Pelicans. In March, when rotations are tightening and every possession starts to feel heavier, that's sometimes the only thing that matters. Not aesthetics, not highlight reels, just survival. Because this game, it was chaos. From the opening quarter, nothing came easy. The Lakers didn't look fluid. They didn't look synchronized. They looked like a team trying to solve a puzzle in real time and occasionally throwing the wrong pieces on the board. The box score tells part of the story. 21 turnovers. That number alone can sink you on most nights. But the more concerning detail? 17 of those came from the three primary creators: LeBron James, Luka Dončić, and Austin Reeves. Luka finished with 7 giveaways. LeBron and Reeves had 5 apiece. That's not rhythm. That's disruption. The issues weren't exotic either. They were the kind that sting because they're preventable. Entry passes footed a split second too long. Cross-court reads were telegraphed. Pocket passes hit traffic instead of hands. Live ball turnovers turned into immediate Pelicans runouts. And against a team that thrives in transition, that's gasoline on the fire. There were stretches where the Lakers were quite literally their own worst enemy. Possessions stalled before they even started. The spacing would form, the action would initiate, and then whistle, or deflection, or miscommunication. The flow never fully breathed. It felt like every time momentum began to build, something yanked it back. And then there was the shooting. 29% from 3. Open corner looks, the shots you design your entire offense to generate. Clanked off iron. Catch and shoot opportunities that normally feel automatic rattled out. When your system is built around spacing to unlock downhill pressure from LeBron and Luka, poor three-point shooting doesn't just lower efficiency. It compresses the floor. It crowds driving lanes. It invites help defenders to take extra steps into the paint. The geometry of the court shrinks fast. Add in the whistles, and the rhythm disappeared completely. Both teams lived at the free throw line. It felt less like a regular season contest and more like a postseason wrestling match. Bodies collided, arms tangled. Every defensive possession carried weight. Every drive was absorbed through contact. The game never settled into a smooth cadence. And yet, here's the part that matters. The Lakers didn't break, because for as messy as everything looked on the surface, there was a quiet counterbalance working underneath it all. A stabilizer, a pressure valve, a detail that didn't scream for attention, but shifted the tone of the floor every time it appeared. Luke Kennard. Coming off the bench, as usual, Kennard didn't dominate the ball. He didn't hijack possessions. He didn't force volume. But what he did was arguably more important. He bent the defense. 3 of 5 from the field, 2 of 3 from deep. A team best plus 16 in a game decided by 9. The numbers are modest at first glance, but the impact was structural. Every time Kennard checked in, the offense breathed differently. The spacing widened by inches, and inches matter in the NBA. Defenders hesitated just a fraction longer before digging into the paint. Weak side helpers stretched a step further. Taggers were forced to choose between protecting the rim and staying glued to a shooter who needs almost no daylight. That hesitation? That's oxygen for creators. Kennard isn't just a stationary shooter waiting in the corner. He's an off-ball manipulator. There's a difference. He relocates instinctively. If the ball swings baseline, he drifts to the slot. If LeBron drives middle, he flattens to the corner to maximize the passing angle. He sprints off pin downs, curls tight around screens, and flows directly into his release with zero wasted motion. The mechanics are compact. The preparation is constant. His feet are set before the pass even arrives, and defenders know it. That awareness alone warps coverage. There were multiple possessions where Luka drove into traffic only to see his defender hesitate. Not because of the big and drop coverage, but because Kennard was ghosting behind the play, relocating to the wing. That extra half step of doubt opens passing windows. It widens kickout lanes. It transforms contested layups into rhythm threes. Even when he didn't shoot, his gravity lingered. On one sequence, Kennard curled off a screen on the weak side, drawing 2 defenders with him. The ball never found him. Instead, the overreaction created a slip to the rim for an easy finish. It won't show up as an assist. It won't headline a recap. But it will. but it's winning basketball. That's what makes elite movement shooters valuable in chaotic games. When structure breaks down, their motion becomes the structure. In a night where the Lakers' primary engines coughed up turnovers and the perimeter shots refused to cooperate, Kennard's presence offered clarity. His minutes felt organized, intentional, purposeful. And maybe that's the deeper takeaway. This wasn't a statement win. It wasn't dominance. It was uncomfortable. It was inefficient. It was gritty in the most literal sense. But teams searching for their identity don't always find it in blowouts. Sometimes they find it in the mud. The Lakers turned the ball over 21 times and still won by 9. They shot 29% from 3 and still controlled the final stretch. They navigated whistles, physicality, and momentum swings, and never fully unraveled. That's growth. Because rediscovering your edge isn't about playing perfect basketball. It's about responding when perfection isn't available. It's about stabilizing chaos instead of being swallowed by it. Last night wasn't pretty, but it was real. And for a team trying to sharpen itself before the games truly matter, real might be exactly what they needed. Meanwhile, Rui Hachimura operates from a different rhythm. Rui Hachimura has flashed impressive three-point percentages at different points this season, and when his feet are set and the catch is clean, he can absolutely punish a late closeout. But Rui's value as a floor spacer is often stationary. It's moment-based. The ball swings, the defense rotates half a step too slow, and he capitalizes. Luke Kennard is something else entirely. He's kinetic, constantly in motion, relocating before the defense can breathe. That difference becomes critical when an offense is stuck in mud. When the initial action dies, when the first read is taken away, when the possession drifts toward late clock isolation, movement shooting can revive it. And the numbers underline why that matters. Kennard has hovered near the 50% mark from 3 for extended stretches, placing himself among the most efficient high-volume shooters in the league. For a franchise that has spent years searching for dependable role-player spacing around its stars, that reliability changes the math. It alters closing lineups. It reshapes how aggressively opponents can double the post. It forces weak-side defenders to think twice before digging down on Luka or loading up against LeBron. Gravity isn't always loud, but it's powerful. Still, offense wasn't the only stabilizer in this game. If Kennard was the quiet flame stretching the floor, Marcus Smart was the defensive spark plug igniting everything else. Marcus Smart finished with 4 steals, continuing a surge that's seen him rack up 9 over his last 2 games and 12 across his last 3. And these weren't reckless gambles. They were reads, anticipation, film study meeting timing. He jumped passing lanes without overcommitting. He slid into help at precisely the right second. He bodied the toughest perimeter assignment, possession after possession, without flinching. With Jared Vanderbilt sidelined, the Lakers have been searching for a consistent defensive tone setter. Smart has embraced that responsibility. He pressures ball handlers the full length of the floor. He calls out coverages before actions fully form. He dives for loose balls even in March, when legs are heavy and the season is long. And yes, there are moments when his offensive decisions veer aggressive. But he compensates on the other end with force. In a game defined by chaos, that kind of defensive energy spreads. Late in the fourth quarter, the Lakers trailed by 8. The building carried tension. The offense hadn't found clean rhythm all night. They didn't need a complicated set. They needed effort. Kennard fired a transition 3 from the corner. It missed, but Smart and Jackson Hayes crashed hard. They tipped the rebound out. The possession reset. The ball swung to Austin Reeves. Space opened. The 3 dropped. That sequence did more than trim the deficit. It shifted the emotional temperature. From that moment, the defensive intensity escalated. Hands were active. Rotations sharpened. The Lakers recorded 7 fourth-quarter blocks. They contested vertically. They turned stops into early offense before New Orleans could establish its switching schemes. The 14-0 run that followed wasn't about elegant half-court choreography. It was grit, simplicity, ball security. Earlier in the third quarter, turnovers had snowballed, 10 in that period alone. The Pelicans threw everything at Luka: switches, traps, quick shows, even zone looks designed to cloud his reads. Some passes were ambitious, some windows closed too quickly. The rhythm fractured. But the fourth quarter adjustment wasn't tactical genius. It was discipline, Fewer risky cross-court feeds, cleaner post entries, spacing that actually held its shape. The Lakers simplified. And when they needed a closer, Luka delivered. Not with flair, but with force. Luka Dončić backed down smaller defenders, absorbed contact, earned trips to the free throw line. He slowed the pace deliberately. Then came the step-back three, rugged, contested, decisive. The kind of shot that silences a run and seals momentum. That's what makes this win fascinating. Austin Reaves struggled early. Austin Reaves entered the third quarter scoreless. Shots that typically fall came up short, but he didn't vanish. He contributed 2 steals and 2 blocks, staying engaged defensively until his offensive rhythm resurfaced. That matters. Impact isn't always tied to scoring columns. LeBron James had his own uneven stretches, particularly with turnovers, but he delivered timely rotations and rim protection when needed. LeBron James didn't dominate in the traditional sense. He stabilized. This wasn't a stars-overwhelmed narrative. It was collective survival. Head coach J.J. Redick acknowledged postgame how choppy it felt. New Orleans cycled through 5 or 6 defensive coverages, constantly shifting the picture. You attack one scheme successfully, and it morphs the next possession. That forces players to process rather than react. And thinking slows flow. Add in an engaged defensive performance from Zion Williamson, and the margin tightens further. The Lakers initially targeted him, expecting to exploit foot speed. Instead, Zion switched effectively, held ground, and erased driving lanes. The plan had to pivot. But when the physicality escalated, the Lakers matched it. Records can deceive. The New Orleans Pelicans entered the night having won 4 of their previous 5. When healthy, they bring length, athleticism, and defensive versatility. This wasn't a pushover matchup. Context matters. Early in the season, when the Los Angeles Lakers opened 15-4, their identity centered on resilience. Double-digit deficits didn't rattle them. They trusted their defense late. They believed in execution. That edge had dulled in recent weeks. This game felt like a small reclaiming of it. Is it sustainable to shoot under 30% from 3 and commit 20-plus turnovers? Absolutely not. Against elite competition, that formula collapses quickly. But proving you can win when aesthetics fall apart builds internal belief. It also clarifies roles. Redick has spoken about closing groups built around 3 constants, with 2 flexible spots determined by matchup. Smart has increasingly earned one of those variable roles, not because of scoring bursts, but because he stars in his lane. That phrase matters. In a league obsessed with primary options and usage rates, the players who dominate their niche can tilt outcomes just as dramatically. Smart's niche is disruption, communication, edge. Kennard's is gravity, precision, relentless off-ball movement. When both fire simultaneously, the team's ceiling lifts. The defensive strides were visible, less zone reliance, more trust in man-to-man coverages, quicker help rotations. Jackson Hayes provided vertical rim presence, altering drives even when he didn't record blocks. The Lakers closed without panic. When New Orleans downsized late, the adjustment was straightforward. Feed the post. Luka punished mismatches. The ball moved decisively. Free throws were converted. The clock drained intentionally. There was even a moment of humor, a player admitting he was terrified to take a charge against Zion in transition. And honestly, that's understandable. When a freight train is barreling downhill, business decisions enter the conversation. But even that lighthearted admission underscored something deeper. This team understands its strengths and limitations. They aren't perfect. They aren't invincible. They will have sloppy stretches, but they are showing the ability to adapt in real time, to embrace physical games rather than shrink from them, to flip momentum with defense instead of waiting for a shooting avalanche. Those traits matter in April. Playoff basketball rarely looks pretty. It's slower, more physical, more strategic. Opponents dissect tendencies and remove comfort zones. They force you to execute through contact and confusion. This game mirrored that environment. Inside the locker room, it likely resonated differently than a 25-point blowout would have. Cohesion isn't built solely through dominance. Sometimes it's forged through shared frustration, through surviving ugly possessions, and trusting the teammate next to you when the jumper won't fall. The Lakers didn't win because they were flawless. They won because they were stubborn. Stubborn about contesting shots. Stubborn about crashing the glass. Stubborn about not allowing an 8-point fourth-quarter deficit to define the outcome. There's work ahead. Turnovers must drop. Perimeter consistency must rise. Offensive flow against layered coverages needs polish. But the defensive growth is tangible. The supporting cast is asserting itself in ways that lighten the Stars' burden. If Kennard continues bending defenses with elite shooting, if Smart continues anchoring perimeter intensity, and if the decision-making from the primary creators tightens without sacrificing aggression, the ceiling becomes significantly more dangerous than occasional sloppiness suggests. Yes, it was messy. Yes, it required grinding through whistles and missed threes. But it was growth. And sometimes the wins you have to claw for reveal more about who you're becoming than the ones that come easy.